Passengers bomb Bluetooth name forces United Airlines flight to turn back midair. A single Bluetooth name caused an international flight to turn around midair, triggered an FBI investigation, and terrified nearly 200 passengers. And wait until you hear who was behind it. Now it's time to break down every angle of this story on our AI podcast.
I want you to think about a highly specific but entirely common habit. You were sitting somewhere crowded, maybe a coffee shop, a doctor's waiting room, or an airport terminal.
Right, just killing time.
Exactly. So you open up your phone's settings to connect to the internet, and you start scrolling through the available Wi-Fi or Bluetooth network.
Oh, yeah. Usually it's a rather amusing window into the people around you.
It really is. You see networks named like FBI surveillance van, or it hurts when IP, or I don't know, somebody's apartment number with a bunch of random exclamation points.
It's a funny quirk of human nature, honestly.
Yeah.
We take these invisible, localized digital spaces and we claim them.
Yeah, we mark our territory.
Right. People personalize them, often with a joke, creating this sort of digital bumper sticker that gets broadcasted to any device within a 50-foot radius.
Just harmless, everyday digital noise. But for today's deep dive, I am your host, and I want you to take that exact same scenario, scrolling through your phone's available networks, and place it into a very different environment.
And I'm our resident expert here to help break this down. So what's the new environment?
Well, you are no longer lounging in a coffee shop. You are strapped into a seat inside a metal tube accelerating down a runway.
Oh, wow. Okay, the stakes are a bit higher there.
Just a bit. And as you glance at that list of available Bluetooth devices pinging your phone, you see a single word pop up: bomb.
Yeah, that completely shatters the illusion of a harmless digital space. The context transforms those four letters from, a bad joke into an immediate severe security crisis.
And that brings us to the reality of United Flight 236. The mission for this deep dive is to look at the timeline of a major aviation security scare triggered entirely by that single word.
It really is a wild story.
It is. We are going to examine how a microscopic digital footprint can mobilize a massive multi-agency federal response and, well, what this incident reveals about the underlying vulnerabilities in modern travel security.
Because it serves as a stark case study of the intersection between our personal digital devices and critical physical infrastructure.
Let's set the stage. It is a Saturday evening, right around 6:00 p.m. We are at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. United Flight 236 is loaded and preparing for departure.
And where are they headed?
The destination is Palma de Mallorca, Spain. So the passenger mindset here is super important. These are people heading out on an international getaway. You have a cabin full of travelers expecting beaches and relaxation.
Yeah, but the environment inside that cabin, at least for the crew, is highly regimented. Takeoff is arguably the most critical phase of any flight.
Right, everyone is locked in.
Exactly. The engines are spooling to maximum thrust, the cabin is fully secured, and the flight attendants are strapped into their jump seats. The crew is operating under what is known as a sterile cockpit rule.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning all non-essential communication is prohibited. Everyone is hyper-focused on safety.
Right in the middle of that highly regimented window, a passenger happens to look at their personal device. They discover an active Bluetooth connection, and the label is simply bomb. The passenger flags this, and the flight staff is notified. So the flight attendants get on the intercom and make multiple announcements, instructing everyone to immediately switch off their electronic devices.
Which is standard procedure.
Right. But despite direct warnings from the crew, that suspicious signal stays online.
And this is where the mechanics of Bluetooth technology clash with aviation protocols.
How so?
Well, devices that use Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE, they don't just sit silently waiting to be found. They continuously broadcast what are known as advertising packets.
Advertising packets, okay.
Yeah, so even if the device isn't actively paired to a phone or a headset, it is blindly shouting its identifier, in this case, the word bomb, to any receiver listening in the vicinity.
Okay, I have to push back here, though. If I am a passenger on that plane and I hear the crew tell everyone to turn off their devices, but that signal is still showing up on my phone, my first instinct is that it's a glitch. I mean, it's like being in a locked escape room and suddenly seeing a digital countdown timer you didn't know was there.
That's a great analogy.
I would assume someone has an old tablet buried at the bottom of a carry-on in the overhead bin, right? And they physically cannot reach it to turn it off. Or maybe a pair of wireless headphones got bumped and turned on inside a suitcase.
So you wouldn't jump to terrorism.
No, I wouldn't instantly assume there is an explosive device on board. Wouldn't you just assume it's a glitch in someone's phone?
That is a logical assumption for a passenger, for sure. In our daily lives, we naturally default to the most mundane explanation for a tech glitch.
Right, because usually it is.
Exactly. But aviation safety operates on an entirely different framework. The industry is built on the systematic elimination of variables. To understand the crew's reaction, you have to think of that Bluetooth signal not as a glitch, but as a digital smoke alarm.
A smoke alarm in a locked room.
Precisely. If a smoke alarm goes off in a building, the fire department doesn't assume someone just burned toast and drive away.
Good point.
They cannot leave until they physically unlock the door, inspect the room, and verify there is no fire. On an aircraft, when the crew issues a direct command to power down devices and a device broadcasting a threat remains active, it ceases to be a mere anomaly.
It becomes a real problem.
It becomes an active, non-compliant variable. The crew has no way to know if that Bluetooth signal is designed to trigger a mechanism in the cargo hold or if it simply belongs to a passenger ignoring instructions. The persistence of the signal forces the crew to treat it as a severe threat.
So because the signal refuses to vanish, the airline staff has to escalate the situation through their security channels. But here is the crazy part.
What's that?
According to the reports we have, the airline staff actually suspected from the beginning that this network name was likely a prank. They didn't think they were dealing with an international terrorist cell. They thought they were dealing with a bad joke.
Really?
Yeah. We have this highlighted by one of the passengers on the flight, Jordan Moore, who actually documented the entire ordeal on TikTok.
Oh, that's fascinating. Her real-time documentation provides a very clear window into the timeline and the communication occurring in the cabin.
Exactly. Moore explained in her post that the network was discovered during takeoff, and the flight staff was immediately notified. She specifically notes that even though the airline staff believed it was a prank, they still had to follow strict safety and security procedures.
Protocol over prank.
Protocol over prank, absolutely. The ultimate decision is made. The Boeing 767 abandons its journey to Spain, executes a mid-air U-turn, and heads back to Newark.
The process behind that decision is so complex, too. I mean, a commercial pilot doesn't just spin a heavy aircraft around on a whim.
It's a huge deal.
It involves a rapid chain of communication. The flight attendants communicate the persistent threat to the flight deck. The captain then communicates with air traffic control and the airline's centralized dispatch center on the ground. They have to run through a specific matrix of threat assessments.
But wait, if the professionals on the plane, the flight attendants and the pilots genuinely suspect it is just a sick joke, why execute the U-turn?
I know, it seems extreme.
Why go through the immense operational hassle, the disruption to hundreds of people, and the sheer financial cost of turning an entire international flight around? Why not just monitor the cabin and continue to Majorca?
It comes down to the burden of proof in modern aviation. In the civilian legal system, a person is innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But in post-9/11 aviation security, a situation is presumed dangerous until you can definitively prove it is safe. You don't have to prove there is an explosive on board to turn a plane around. You have to physically prove there isn't one to keep flying.
Wow. And hovering at 30,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean, the crew has zero physical ability to prove that an unseen Bluetooth signal is harmless.
Exactly. They cannot tear apart the cargo hold mid-flight. They cannot interrogate every passenger and dissect every piece of luggage while in the air.
No, of course not.
The system is entirely binary. The aircraft is either certifiably safe or it is compromised. Because the captain cannot verify the safety of the aircraft in the air, they are forced to bring that burden of proof down to the tarmac.
And bringing it to the tarmac means dumping this mystery into the laps of 190 passengers and 12 crew members. The plane lands safely back at Newark at approximately 9:30 p.m.
And they left at 6:2 p.m., right?
Right, meaning these passengers have been sitting in a state of tense, uncertain limbo for hours.
Hours of circling, knowing a security threat has grounded their international vacation, but having no idea what the threat actually looks like. That sounds terrifying.
It sounds exhausting. Once they land, the physical ground operation begins. The Boeing 767 is completely evacuated. Port Authority police officers and specialized canine units immediately board to conduct a sweep of the aircraft.
Just a massive response.
Think about Jordan Moore's reaction online during this process. She posted, quote, "Who labels their Bluetooth network BMB? What kind of sick joke is this?"
You can just feel the frustration there. The frustration is palpable because the procedural reset for an international flight is grueling.
It's like getting ready for a marathon, running the first 3 miles, and then being told you have to go back to the starting line and let a police dog sniff your shoes.
That is painfully accurate. What people often don't realize is the sheer number of federal and local agencies that instantly mobilize when a commercial airliner returns due to a security threat.
It's not just local cops.
No, the physical sweep by the Port Authority and K-9 units is only the first layer.
Because they have to address the human element, too, the passengers and their luggage.
Every single person on that flight is now part of a security dragnet. Because this was an international departure, you have both Transportation Security Administration, the TSA and Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, coordinating the response.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It is. The authorities have to conduct a full forensic audit of the flight manifest.
What does that forensic audit actually look like for the passengers sitting in the terminal? I mean, are they just waiting around?
It means total rescreening. Every piece of checked luggage has to be pulled from the cargo hold, x-rayed again, and sniffed by dogs.
Every single bag.
Every single bag. Every carry-on bag is emptied and swabbed for explosive residue. Every passenger is rescanned, and law enforcement conducts targeted interviews to trace the origin of the digital signal.
So they are basically locked down.
Absolutely. Nobody is allowed near that aircraft or any other flight until the authorities can definitively account for every piece of electronics on site.
They are running x-rays, deploying bomb-sniffing dogs, and conducting interrogations just to find the physical source of a digital ghost.
It's a huge undertaking.
And after hours of this massive multi-agency sweep, they finally pinpoint the hardware. They find no actual explosive threat, the source of the bomb Bluetooth signal. It belonged to a 16-year-old passenger's Fitbit smartwatch.
Just a standard commercial workout tracker. Unbelievable.
Let's look at the immediate aftermath of that discovery. United Airlines put out a statement confirming the flight return to address a potential security concern.
Which is putting it mildly.
Flight tracking records show that after all the security audits were completed, the flight didn't depart again until 2:21 on ham AM the following morning.
Oh, that is brutal.
And they couldn't even use the original flight crew. They had to bring in a completely new crew to take those exhausted passengers to Spain.
Well, that part is actually a direct result of Federal Aviation Administration regulations.
The new crew.
Yeah, specifically Part 117 rules, which govern flight crew member duty and rest requirements.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the FAA mandates strict limits on how many consecutive hours a pilot or flight attendant can work to prevent fatigue-related accidents. The hours spent dealing with the security threat, the evacuation, and the rescreening pushed the original 12 crew members over their legal duty limit.
Oh, I see.
They timed out, legally requiring the airline to source and deploy a fresh crew in the middle of the night.
How does a teenager's workout watch manage to ground a Boeing 767 and trigger all of this? I mean, how does someone rename a Fitbit to something that causes a federal response?
The mechanism is surprisingly simple, which is actually part of the problem. Yeah, many smart devices and wearables allow users to customize their device's display name through a companion app on their phone. The user types a new name into the app pushes a firmware update to the watch, and from that moment on, the watch mindlessly broadcasts that string of characters via low-energy Bluetooth packets.
So it doesn't know it's saying something dangerous?
It doesn't know what the word means at all. It just broadcasts it continuously until the battery dies or the name is changed again.
But wait, surely there must be some immediate legal consequence for this kid. If a 16-year-old alters their device name to a bomb threat, and it results in grounding a commercial airliner, costing an airline tens of thousands of dollars, mobilizing police units, what happens to them?
The intersection of digital behavior and federal law is incredibly strict here.
I would hope so.
According to the reports, the 16-year-old passenger was not immediately charged locally by the Port Authority police. However, the incident triggered an active investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to determine if federal laws were violated.
The FBI is investigating the renaming of a smartwatch.
They have to. Federal authorities treat digital threats on international flights with the exact same severity as physical threats. The legal framework doesn't necessarily care if you thought you were making a joke.
Intent doesn't matter as much.
Right. The FBI investigates these incidents under federal statutes regarding interference with flight crew members and attendants, as well as conveying false information or threats.
And those are serious?
These are felonies. Communicating a false distress message that disrupts critical infrastructure is a severe offense, regardless of whether the medium was a handwritten note or a Bluetooth beacon.
Which brings this right back to you, the listener. This entire incident is a stark reminder to audit the digital footprint of your own personal devices.
Seriously, check your settings.
Think about your personal hotspots, your wireless headphones, your tablets, and your smartwatches. A network name you typed in as a joke 5 years ago that you completely forgot about could still be actively broadcasting. A name you thought was funny could lead to an FBI investigation today.
It is a fundamental issue of digital hygiene. We carry devices that are constantly introducing themselves to the environment around them, shaking hands with routers, and pinging their identifiers to anyone listening.
It's wild to think about.
You are essentially carrying a digital megaphone in your pocket. You need to know exactly what it is shouting to the world before you step into a highly secured environment like an airport.
Let's just quickly summarize the incredible contrast at the heart of this deep dive. A 16-year-old's tiny half-ounce wearable device managed to mobilize the Port Authority Police, specialized K-9 units, the Transportation Security Administration, Customs and Border Protection, and the FBI.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It forced a massive commercial airliner to execute a U-turn over the ocean, it pushed a flight crew past their legal working limits, and it completely upended the lives of over 200 people for more than 8 hours, all from 4 letters on a screen.
The leverage that a single localized digital signal has over vast physical infrastructure is just staggering. It highlights a critical vulnerability in systems that rely on strict binary security protocols.
And that leaves us with a lingering, provocative thought for you to mull over. If a completely unintentional, localized Bluetooth name from a teenager who probably just thought they were being edgy can successfully force an international flight to turn around and ground a Boeing 767, how vulnerable are our physical transportation networks to purely digital phantom threats?
That's the real question.
As our devices constantly broadcast data, how long until malicious actors use this exact tactic of digital noise to intentionally disrupt critical infrastructure?
Yeah, think about it.
You wouldn't need to bypass security checkpoints. You wouldn't need to bring a real weapon anywhere near an airport. A coordinated effort to flood a terminal or an aircraft with terrifying digital signals could force the entire physical system to shut itself down out of an abundance of caution.
Just using the system's own safety rules against it.
Exactly. So the next time you are sitting in a crowded place, scrolling through the available networks to see the funny names people choose, remember Flight 236. That invisible digital world you are looking at has the power to bring the physical world to a grinding halt.
Okay, one question for you. Should passengers who make jokes involving bombs or terrorism on flights face lifetime airline bans and criminal investigation even if no real threat exists, considering the panic, delays, and massive security cost involved? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.